Now, the one thing you got to be cautious about, and I'll ask you guys this, what do you think is the one thing you need to be cautious about in this type of scenario? What would you say? Yep, Greg. Bing, bing, ding, ding, ding. Correct. Overlapping levels of structure, right? So we have our main level of structure right here that we're looking at, but right above that, we have an overlapping level of structure. And even above that, we got a big old VS1 level as well. So that may make it difficult to place safe stops. Now, this is where that, I don't want to say dilemma, because you should have it in your rules as a trader. But if you're someone that's in the process of creating trading rules, maybe you don't really know your trading profile yet, this is where that dilemma comes in, comes into play. So I can tell you what you don't want to do, right? You don't want to give yourself a negative risk reward. So you don't want to be a trader that does something like this. Like, I'm going to take a trade, look for shorts right here. I'm going to put stops right here, and I'm looking for targets, down here. And then you see that level of structure, and you're like, well, you know what? I'm going to get my stops up here. I'll draw this in for you real quick. Let me just do a little deal here so you can get a visual. This will be my risk in red, because red stands for risk. Thicken them up, feed them some American food, right? And then we'll do another one for my reward. Let's say you're looking down here. So initially, let's say you got a nice little, probably just above 1-to-1 risk reward, nothing too great. This is just predictive, whatever like that. Let's say you start moving or I should say initially your risk reward, something like that. Let's say you start moving it up. Now you want to avoid this level, right? And this is a mistake that traders make. Now you're looking at something like this, and you say, oh no, well, you know what? This isn't a really safe stop loss, so I'm going to move it up here, right? And all of a sudden you take a risk like this. And the bad part is that, and you guys may have done this before, right? Typically traders don't do this pre-trade, right? Would you say that most traders do a full analysis of the market pre-trade? Like do a full analysis of entry stops and targets pre-trade? Most do not, right? Most have a trading idea. They're anxious and I guess not desperate. Some of them are desperate. They want to get into the trading idea right away, and then they make adjustments later. So what you'll see is a lot of traders will do this after the trade, where they'll get into an initial trade like this. Price may be going up a little bit. They get scared, they panic, and they say, you know what, I'm going to move my stop just a little bit back to a safer area, right? Because I hope price action doesn't get to this area, right? They start sniffing lines of the hopium, right? Then price continues up. And you're like, oh, well, I got this VS1 level there. Akil said VS1 levels, right? Those are our major levels of structure, support, and resistance. Let me get above there, right? And then they fall into that trap of moving stops backwards. The deadly trap of moving stops backwards. And all moving stops backward does is increase your risk. So what we want to do as traders is we want to be aware of the risk beforehand. We want to determine the risk. We want to analyze the risk. And then we want to make a decision on if we're willing to take the risk, right? Every trade that we take, we need to be okay with the risk, right? If you are not okay with the risk, you should not be trading, right? This is why there should never, ever be any nervousness or anything like trading, or limited nervousness, right? We are human beings, right? But we need to come to terms with like, this is my risk. And by me taking this trade, by me clicking this execution, right? I've accepted that risk. It's no different than being at the poker table and you put your chips in, right, for a bet. You're like, hey, I'm taking the risk on this trade or on this bet, right? So you need to determine beforehand, right, with your stop loss in this particular situation, are you comfortable taking it here? Are you comfortable taking it here? Or are you comfortable taking it here from a risk reward perspective, but also from a psychological perspective? And I would tell you this, if let's say, I'll pick on John. Let's say John decides, hey, he likes his trade. He gets whatever entry signal he needs to. Per his rules, he's using his stop loss. His stop loss goes right here. John knows that this isn't the ideal stop loss, right? He does have protection from this, but he knows how overlapping levels of structure work. He knows price likes to test and tickle those higher levels. So John knows that there's probably a good chance that it could be one of those funky trades where a wick pops up, stops him out, grabs his money, and goes the other direction. Is it okay for John to take this trade? Yes or no? What would you guys say? Knowing that information, right? We're in the business of gathering information. Hunter-gatherers, right? You got trade hunters, then you got information gatherers. We are information gatherers. Is it okay for John to take this trade? Knowing that he has overlapping levels of structure, what would you guys say? Yay or nay? The answer is yes. Sure. John can take the trade. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with John taking this trade. Now, the one thing that John has to do is he just has to accept that, hey, my stops aren't in the greatest place. There is a higher chance than normal, right? Normally, my stops are beyond the level of structure in the safest location possible within my risk parameters. This case is a little bit different. I followed all my rules. I am above the level of structure that I'm executing the trade at, but there happens to be multi-levels of structure next to it. And I'm not protected from those. But I'm okay taking the trade. It is still a valid trade. I just know that it's not as safe as it usually is. It's not as safe as it could be. And why that's important is to stop from future errors, right? It's important to accept that, to cut down on future errors. Because now if price starts moving against John, he's no longer panicking. He's no longer in a state of distress. He's no longer moving his stop backs. He's no longer snorting the hopium, right? And making the situation worse. He's taking a normal loss, right? And we should never be scared of a normal loss, right? We should expect normal losses. Normal losses don't hurt traders, right? If you're executing your plan correctly, if you have a positive expectancy, normal losses should not hurt traders. What hurts traders is abnormal losses. The big ones. Those are what hurt traders, and those are typically done by trading mistakes. So what I found in my trading career is that it's very important to kind of mentally accept and prepare. In general, in my mind, I am. I used to be a pessimist. I'm not an optimist by any means, but I was always someone that prepared for the worst. Where in my mind, I would always prepare for the worst case scenario, and if the best case scenario happened, boom, icing on the cake. But I would prepare for the worst case scenario. That way, I wouldn't get drug into like these mental battles. Right? It happened as a kid. I would like study for tests, and I'd be so confident about like getting an A on the test, and I get like a D, and I would just be like, oh, I'd be crushed. So I kind of like gave up and was like, oh well, I'm probably just gonna get a D on this, and then like I get like a B, and I'd be like, yeah, I'd be all excited. But if you mentally prepare, it's gonna stop you from making those errors because you're not gonna be in that level of distress. And again, there's a big Dr. Brett Steinberger said this perfectly, where there's a difference between stress and distress, right? Stress is normal. So frustration with losing a trade, frustration with seeing price hover a pip above your targets or a pip before your stops, right? And you're sitting there like anxious, like that is normal. Like that's part of trading, right? I've been watching this thing on Netflix I just started called Spy. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's the guy from Borat, which is weird to see him like serious and not in that little green bikini thing. I'm still like picturing him in this. I'm waiting for him at any moment to like rip off his 3-piece suit and be in this bikini. But I'm watching this thing and he's a spy. He's undercover. And he's at like, I can never be, I look at myself and I'm like, I can never be undercover. Like he's at this party. I'm not going to spoil anything. He's at this party and he's like climbing through the window. And like, there's a guy, the security guy comes in, he's like behind this wall and I'm like, he's going to get caught. I'm like peeing myself watching this thing. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could never be a spy. Like I would have pooped myself. Right? And then he's on screen just like calm, nothing. And the point is, like, I'm sure he's stressed, right? How can you be not stressed? If you get caught, you're dead. If you get caught, you're dead. I'm sure he was stressed. James Bond, no matter how smooth he is, stressed. But the difference is he's not in distress. Someone in distress would panic. They would sweat. They would, burp, belch, like leave a shoe out, make a mistake. They're in a panic mode. This guy is trained to be cool, calm, and collect. The markets are the same way, right? All types of frustrating stuff happens in the market all the time. The difference is how are you going to handle it? When price is moving towards your stop loss, right, in a big old green candle, are you going to panic and start moving my stop loss back? Or are you going to be like, hey, I trust it. I've trained for this. Right? That's stress versus distress. It's a massive difference. When I heard that from the doctor, right? GOAT doctor, Dr. Brett Steenbarger, changed my outlook on many things in life. Because I used to get upset with like, I shouldn't be stressed. Like, this is not normal. I'm supposed to be a trader, no emotions, like robotic, right? And then when I kind of got on the whole thing with between him and Denise Scholl, with there's a difference between like being a trader and being human. Like, you could be robotic and still human at the same time. Kind of changed my outlook on stuff. So hope you enjoyed today's video. And remember, if you ever want to join us for a live session, feel free. We host a London and a New York session each and every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Just head over to www.tier1trading.com, sign up. And by the way, before you leave, do me a favor, hit that like button and leave any comments or questions below. See you tomorrow.